Well, our burnt offering this week, Joel, is a little scientific nugget called the Corpse Vanishes.
It features Bela Lugosi stewing in his own mediocrity.
Yes, but first, another one of those space stinkers, Commando Cody and the Bridge of Death.
Enjoy!
This time, we watch Season 1, Episode 5, The Corpse Vanishes.
In which Bela Lugosi plays an evil scientist who surrounds himself with people who chew the scenery even more than he does.
And there's a short, Radar Men from the Moon, Chapter 3, Bridge of Death. But first, some follow-up.
Absolutely. We've got some more follow-up that's very exciting. People keep sending in the songs that they're using to remove earworms from their head, which I'm starting to call ear dewormers.
I'm telling you, I never even thought of this as a technique, and yet what a good way to get those earworms out of our skulls.
Well, here are a few more options in case you're still looking for your ear dewormer song. Devoted listener Perry says, "Hey guys, the song I use to get rid of earworms is the theme song to my favorite childhood show, Sesame Street."
Oh, wow, that's a really good one.
It is a very sweet one.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And devoted listener Steven says, regarding the extermination of earworms, I use something super simple. Back in the 1970s and 80s, there were a series of TV commercials advertising men's personal hygiene products like deodorant, soap, and aftershave. The company was called Menin, and each TV commercial ended with the famous musical phrase, "By Menin."
Yep, I remember that. He can eradicate an earworm with 3 notes. Is that what he say? Are we now playing like Get Rid of the Earworm or like it's named that tune? How short of a song can you use?
I mean, it's a really wonderful little thing that I used to get stuck in my head as a kid. I used to want to just say, "Bye, Menin," after everything.
Yeah.
But also, that feels like you're just hitting the problem with a sledgehammer. I don't know. I like it. It's not my approach. I want a little bit of a more sort of catchy, tuneful thing. But if it works, it works.
Yeah.
So keep those suggestions coming in until Charlotte finally picks which one she's going to use to stop songs from getting in her head.
It'll just become a conglomeration of the whole thing, a decoupage of ear dewormers.
Exactly. Now, we also have some feedback specifically to our previous episode about the pilot, the proof of concept on the green slime.
Mm-hmm.
A few people wrote in to say that we missed a few things, which, to be fair, we had just finished a really long road trip. We were not giving ourselves all the time in the world to do our research. But I wanted to read out one of the notes that we got, although thank you to everybody who wrote in.
Of course.
Alan writes in and says, "Hi, folks, a couple things you missed. One of the film's writers was Bill Finger. In 1939, he and an artist named Bob Kane created this hero called Batman."
Oh, yeah, that guy. Mm-hmm.
So this was a detail that I had found in my research, but I had gotten confused by it because I had read that he had helped contribute to some of the TV shows and a few other things, which was true. But I didn't realize he'd been one of the guys who made Batman.
One of the originals, the OG Batman creators.
And part of this is because he didn't really get credit for a long, long time.
That sounds like a story as old as time.
Kind of, yeah. So the artist made the basic idea of Batman, ran it by Bill Finger, and Bill Finger made a lot of suggestions, including unimportant details like Bruce Wayne, say.
Oh, the name of his roommate?
The existence of the alter ego, yes. So it took a long time for Bill Finger to get properly credited. That was me being tired and not fully checking that out. Bill Finger also was a writer for the film Track of the Moon Beast, which was done in season 10, so we'll have another chance to talk more about him.
Oh, nice. Maybe we'll have a whole segment on Batman then.
I mean, we've done that in the 2 Batman-related movies that we've done. But there's always room for more Batman.
Yes.
Also, Alan adds, back in the 70s and 80s, TSR, which is the company that put out Dungeons & Dragons, sold a board game called The Awful Green Things from Outer Space.
Great title. No notes.
Yeah, well, and it was based on this film, The Green Slime, but it had more cartoony characters. Uh, Although I knew of this game back in the day, I never owned it. The game was eventually published by a different company called Steve Jackson Games, and so I would get the little catalogs if I bought other Steve Jackson Games products, and it would mention this, and I'd think, oh, that looks kind of neat, but I knew that I'd never have anyone that I could play it with, so I never got myself a copy, so I've never played it myself. Alan says I owned a copy and played it a lot, but never realized that it was based on the film until I saw the unriffed version.
Oh.
So, sounds like it actually was fun if you were lucky enough to have somebody that you could play these kinds of games with back in the day.
Perhaps the game was a little bit more successful than the movie itself.
I mean, maybe it was more fun than the movie was.
I'll drink to that.
So yes, in my research, I had found out about the board game, but I never got a chance to play it. I knew you hadn't played it, so we didn't bring it up because we didn't have anything to say about it, and we didn't have time to find a copy and play it real quick for the show. So there was nothing to say. But now Alan has written in and told us a little bit more about it. Now there's a bit of context and something we can add, and so that's great. Sometimes I miss things like with Bill Finger, and sometimes we choose not to include them, like the Awful Green Things from Outer Space. But it's all good. But now let's talk about, or not talk about, various things related to the Corpse Vanishes, shall we?
That sounds lovely.
This time we watch Season 1, Episode 5, The Corpse Vanishes.
But first, a short Radar Men from the Moon, Chapter 3, Bridge of Death. Last time on Radar Men from the Moon, we left Commando Cody and his friend trapped in a cave while the evil moon folks melted the rocks around them. As a wave of molten rock washed towards the two, we wondered, how will Commando Cody escape? Well, it turns out there was a side door or something, and they basically just walked out. So that tension, completely unnecessary. Now, Cody and friend return to their rocket to discuss options with the crew. They lost the ray gun they tried to steal, so best option left is to return to Earth and let everyone know of the Radar Men's nefarious scheme to invade the Earth. The Radar Men try to stop them from leaving the moon, but fail. They recruit nasty Earthlings to help stop the rocket from landing on Earth, but they fail too. The evil Earthlings try to escape in a car from the rocket landing site, but Cody, at least I think it's Cody, it's hard to tell, Cody rushes into a car and chases after them. Ooh, car chase scene. Eventually, the evil men leave their bomb on the bridge in front of Cody, and just as he starts to cross the bridge, boom! The bridge is destroyed. Cody's car drives off the edge. How will Cody escape certain death this time? Tune in next time, but until then, this is the end.
And now for our feature presentation. Patricia Hunter is a young, tough-as-nails reporter for the local paper, but sadly, she's been given the society beat. Boring! Except, maybe not, as a lot of these high society brides seem to be dying at the altar, literally passing out, dead. And then their bodies are stolen. Oh, how tragic, how mysterious, and how thrilling for a young, tough-as-nails reporter looking for a big scoop. She manages to snag the clue that's eluded the cops. All the brides were wearing the same kinds of orchids as a corsage, and she's even gotten her hands on one of those orchids. And doesn't it smell peculiar? Real peculiar, since orchids famously don't have any smell. Better ask an expert. And hey, famed orchid breeder Dr. Lorenz lives in a small town just upstate. Maybe he knows something about them? Well, he certainly ought to know something. He's the one who developed this cultivar of orchids. He's also the one sneakily getting brides to wear them, causing them to smell the toxic perfume and faint. He and his lackeys are also the ones stealing their bodies. Well, he's being played by Bela Lugosi. What do you expect? Turns out Lorenz is collecting the bodies to create some kind of serum that will keep his wife young and beautiful. He's a bit annoyed that a young, tough-as-nails reporter is getting into his business, especially when a storm means that she'll have to stay the night. And during the night, people keep creeping into her bedroom and being all weird. Mrs. Lorenz, some of Lorenz's lackeys, and even Dr. Lorenz himself show up at her bedside. Eventually, she wakes up in the middle of the night, wanders around, finds the bodies of the brides, and the jig is up. But how to prove it? Her friend poses as a beautiful bride to sneakily get Lorenz to try to grab her at a wedding where all the guests are cops. But when Lorenz's plan goes awry, he kidnaps our reporter instead. The cops chase after. Lots of people die, and our now famous reporter, having gotten the scoop of her career, decides to leave her job and marry some nebbish that she met along the way. What? The end.
Meanwhile, on the Satellite of Love, Dr. Forrester has just returned from the Mad Scientist Convention with the best swag. He gives Dr. Earhart Isaac Asimov Body Splash, part of the Foundation Trilogy gift set. Smells like space! In the invention exchange, Joel shows off the invention from the KTMA proof of concept reel, the Gyro, which rotates your head real fast and fixes all your neck and back problems. The Mads have an exciting update to the squirting lapel flower joke as they replace the customary water stream with a stream of fire. Light your friends on fire for fun, or torture a guy in space with bad movies. Or both. Why choose? After the short, Tom is reading TigerBot, the magazine for adolescent bots who just want to know everything about their favorite stars. Who's the cover story this month? It's Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. He is so dreamy. Spoiler alert, I agree, meow, or whatever noise bots make to indicate appreciation of hotness. Look at that hot schematic of his bot brain. Ooh. But his goal is to become human? Ugh. Tom and Crow are so turned off. What a sellout. At movie break, it's a game of tag on the Satellite of Love. Tom runs by, followed by Crow, then Joel, then GPC, then Tom, then Crow, then Joel, then GPC, then Tom, then Crow, then Joel, then GPC. Off screen, we hear GPC yell, "Tag, you're it!" Joel enters the screen, calls to Tom and Crow, and face tag! They've been tricked, and now they're it. Next break finds Joel getting a haircut from Crow. Remember how the credits used to say hair by Mr. Crow of Beverly Hills? Turns out it's true. Now the Satellite of Love has become barbershop gossip central. We hear all about some town residents and their futile attempts to grow into adulthood. Eventually, Crow transitions into a story about 150 or 200 clowns out at a clown jamboree and a crazy incident with some road soda, and they're still picking up clown noses. They even had to stuff all 200 clowns into a single itty-bitty van. Who knew clowns were so good for that? Movie's done, and it's ram chip time. For a good thing and a bad thing about the movie, Crow and Tom can earn some ram chips. Crow succeeds by focusing on the mutant family working for Bela Lugosi. Tom has a litany of bad things about the movie, but in trying to think about a good thing, he can't, and his head explodes. The Mads see this as a good sign. Note to selves, get more movies like this one. What do you think, sirs?
What did you think about this episode?
Ooh, it was I would not put this out there as one of my favorite episodes, and it would not be an episode that I would put in front of somebody trying to convince them that Mystery Science Theater 3000 was the best show ever on television. There were things I appreciated about it. Most particularly, I think they did a really amazing job with the riffing in terms of calling back to riffs that they had done earlier and using them again and again so that it felt like one coherent episode. And the riffs were pretty funny, but not going to be a gold medal winner in my mind. Maybe you can convince me otherwise?
Well, I wouldn't disagree with you in the sense that, no, I wouldn't recommend this to be anyone's first episode, but Jim Vorel did a ranking of every MST3K episode for Paste Magazine back in the day, right after the first Netflix season had come out.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 191 episodes, and he placed this episode at episode 184.
Oh, that seems a little harsh.
He put it one above Mighty Jack from season 3.
That seems really harsh.
It's a very odd list, let's put it that way. I don't think it's that bad. I kind of enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I've watched this episode before. Maybe that's part of it. But like for a season 1 episode about a dreary 1942 movie, it's not that bad. I thought they did a pretty good job with a movie that had some really slow parts and a short that I couldn't care at all about.
Gosh, Radar Men from the Moon is like the worst. We still have more to do, don't we?
We have a lot to get through. Here's a fun fact about the Corpse Vanishes.
Uh-huh.
It is tied with an episode that we did recently, The Mad Monster, also a season 1 episode, as the oldest movie that they had as a main feature. They both came out on May 8th, 1942.
God, that's before my parents were born. Wow. I appreciate that it's a movie with Bela Lugosi in it. Like there is so much to enjoy about Bela Lugosi when he is like chewing the wallpaper. It's amazing.
I love all the characters chewing the wallpaper. I think Mrs. Lorenz is a lot of fun. I think
it's true. The Countess.
the mother of the 2 lackeys who get killed off is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, she totally gives big Cloris Leachman vibes, just like they talk about in the riffs.
Yeah, and I mean, a part of me was like, wait, is Frau Blucher based on this character?
I mean, why not?
It seems unlikely, but maybe.
I mean, you never know with Mel Brooks, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were watching all sorts of movies and random Bela Lugosi movies. I'm sure people saw it. I don't know.
Yes.
I think it's interesting when they dip this far back into cinema history. 1942 is pretty old, and a lot of this film looks old. It's not so old that, like, I don't know, some old movies sometimes have like really weird pacing and huge pauses between everything everyone says, and the sound is awful.
Sure, and long sequences of people just walking around a room but not really doing anything that furthers the plot or has any connection with for a long time. Like you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and then it's like, and then I found a book in the library that it took me 15 minutes of screen time to find. It's like, okay, I understand why we expedite that process in later movies.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that in this movie, but not very much. So, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I would love to see them do more very old movies just because there's a weird flavor to them, I guess. And I think I enjoyed this one more than The Mad Monster.
Yeah, but certainly, like, this movie has a lot of things going on inside of it that are really interesting. It doesn't particularly do it well, and it's not a compelling movie to watch, but it has interesting things happening. Like, it has a lot of misdirection about who's going to be the main character, other than Bela Lugosi, of course, right? You have this, this bride-to-be whose mother is there, and there's a whole section of the movie that's just all about how can we prevent this bride from dying. And that could have been what the movie was about.
Yeah.
Right? Like that could have been the crux of the movie. She could have been the main character. That wedding could have been when Bela Lugosi and his henchmen were caught. But it's not. She ends up dying. And so there's this whole, I have this whole context with these characters that will never show up again now. And then we see the reporter and we get to follow the reporter a while, but then she meets a doctor who's friends with Dr. Lorenz, and you think like, okay, well, maybe that doctor's going to be the main character and he's going to be more important. And it turns out he's not. And there's a lot of things like that that I appreciate about the movie, giving me larger context and giving me a little bit of misdirection. But sometimes it just feels like it's padding the film.
I mean, the film is like an hour long, so it doesn't get a lot of padding to it.
Yes, but it's not love that pads the film. They're doing it wrong.
No, the love is the thing that pads the film. The nebbishy doctor that she falls in love with is boring and stupid, and I don't like it. And I don't like that
No.
she has to do the 1940s things of when she gets married, giving up her job and career.
Sure,
Like,
yes.
ugh.
I can't believe I had to lose an ace reporter like you.
Exactly. Nonsense.
But really, that is minor padding compared to, like, let's have 3 or 4 weddings before the plot begins. I mean,
Yeah, but I don't mind that one as much because, as you say, it's doing something kind of interesting. It's shifting around. It's making you uncertain. Like our main character, our young tough as nails reporter, looks like she's just a minor character at first.
yeah.
And that's great. Like I love that little surprise twist. And I don't know, there are so many weird characters living at the Lorenz residence
Yeah.
that it's great. Unfortunately, the movie falls into the horror trope of using people who look different. Either, one character has a hunch, one character is a little person, and it draws upon them for like, oh, isn't it freakish and isn't this a horror? I guess. But the movie actually doesn't exploit that as much as it could, I suppose. And honestly, the riffers kind of do a less sensitive job with that material than the movie does.
It's true. And you have the trope of a Torgo, right? The person who is in service to the master who starts interacting with the brides that have been passed out. I don't even, I'm still hung up a little bit on the whole corpse bride thing because partway through the movie, they're still alive and they can still extract whatever youth serum they need from them, but they're also dead. And the name of the movie is The Corpse Vanishes. So it's got this weird thing going on with, are these ladies alive or dead? But you also have the henchman who is kind of wanting to have one of these ladies as his own, the way Torgo does in Manos, the Hands of Fate.
Exactly.
And he's, what would they have called him? Simple? So you have somebody who not only, they have these people who have bodies that look different, who we are supposed to other, but we also have somebody whose mental capacity is different, and we are supposed to see that as other as well.
Right. Just like we had in The Mad Monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real horror trend, of course. Yeah, I also don't understand how, like, he's only been taking brides for a few weeks. He's only gotten like 4 of them. And she's so dependent and they keep needing fresh ones. Like, what was going on a month ago?
Well, look at how quickly she needs another serum injection. They get the corpse of one of the brides and like 24 hours later, she's already like in pain, becoming old and ugly.
So to speak, yeah.
So to speak. She's still freaking beautiful, everyone. Like Hollywood beautiful, but still.
But whatever. It's fine. It's just a movie.
Sure.
It's okay. The plot doesn't have to make that much sense.
No, clearly it doesn't.
It's trying to wow you with spectacle and over-the-top performances, and it does a moderately good job with that, I think. So one of the key facts in this movie is, as our young Tough as Nails reporter says,
who ever heard of an orchid with a scent?
That's true. She does say that.
I mean, that's true that she says it. It's not true that orchids don't have scents, however.
Is it the case that the orchids that they use for corsages specifically don't have scents? I'm just thinking about corsages like the ones that somebody gives somebody for prom, like the one that I might have gotten for my prom, or that when I went to a fake prom with some friends that I got for a friend. And I got her gardenias because her grandmother loved gardenias. She loves gardenias, but gardenias have a very powerful odor, and there's lots of people who can't handle powerful odors for a long period of time. So are orchids something that they use so that a person who has scent sensitivity can wear it for longer?
That's a great question that I don't have a full answer to, but let's walk through this step by step.
Okay.
First off, orchids. Some of them don't have scents, and so some of them are good for people who want to have flowers around and can't handle strongly perfumed flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Many of them do have scents, and some of those scents apparently do fade pretty quickly once they are cut and put into a corsage. But many of them have really strong scents that they use to attract insects and so forth so that they can pollinate.
That makes sense. You either have like big showy colors or a big showy configuration of petals. You have big scents. Like all of those things are the things that you're using to attract interactions so that you can pollinate. Yeah.
And also sometimes these are scents and sort of color arrangements that are used to imitate the insects that they're trying to attract. Some orchids put out sex pheromones to attract bees or whatever, and then their little reproductive glands in the middle of the flower, the stamen or pistil or whatever it is. I'm not an expert on any of this.
You're not a flowerologist, is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm not a flowerologist. It's true. But I did read up a little bit on orchids for this because why not? I don't know. They seemed like they might be interesting. And I also was like, yeah, orchids. Maybe they don't have a scent. And they totally do. You know what? You know how you should know that orchids can have scent?
How's that?
Vanilla is an orchid.
Yeah, but is it the orchid that has the scent or is it the seed pod? Because it's the vanilla seed pod that we use to have vanilla.
That's true. I don't know whether the flower itself has the same vanilla scent.
But it entirely makes sense that that scent would already be a part of the flower that's then being infused in the seed pod. Again, I'm also not a flowerologist.
Yeah. I saw a list of different smells that orchids put out. Some of them are, cinnamon and vanilla and lovely scents like that. And some of them smell like decaying animals or dog droppings or rotting things.
Yeah, that sounds good too. Mm-hmm.
Rotting brie cheese, which, like, brie cheese is already pretty strong. But if you make it rotting, wow.
Yeah, no, but it makes sense that some pollinators are attracted to decay and not to the flowery scents that we associate with perfumes.
Yes, indeed. There is a type of orchid which is called the Dracula orchid.
Does it suck your blood?
It doesn't.
Is it red?
That is how it got the name, is that many of the varieties of Dracula orchid are red, and they have these sort of long spindly bits to their petals that, I don't know, look a bit draconic or something, or look a bit evil.
They look like teeth.
They don't so much look like teeth, but as like the drippy things that come off of a dragon's, the tendrily things that sometimes dragons' mouths are depicted as having. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, totally. No, I don't know what you would call them either. But, they look like a mustache in like Mulan on the dragon that they have in that movie.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's even one that's scientific name is Dracula vampira, and I'm going to send you a picture of it right now because it's gorgeous.
Ooh, it's not red at all, though.
There's a little bit of red flecking to the tendrily bits, but yeah, no, not all of the Dracula plants are red.
No, this looks very sinister. It looks sinister. How big is this flower?
It's flower sized, I think.
Oh, come on, Chris. You know that orchids come in many different sizes.
Yes, but I didn't look up the size of this particular flower. There are over 100,000 human-made hybrids. I didn't memorize the size of all of them for this podcast.
Again, we're not flowerologists, so that makes sense.
And if you're going to make a movie with Bela Lugosi where he makes poison flowers
yes,
and gives them to brides, that would make sense. Also, I do want to say, we talked about orchids giving off sex pheromones to attract bees, but of course, orchids famously are associated with sex in other ways.
Is this the Georgia O'Keeffe way? Because meow.
So yes, there is the Georgia O'Keeffe thing. Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings of orchids that look awfully a lot like certain intimate body parts.
Perhaps.
And also, orchids get their name from the Greek word for testicle.
Okay, but that means that the Greeks and Georgia O'Keeffe are not agreeing on what this orchid is all about.
They're looking at different parts. So Georgia O'Keeffe is looking at the flowers, which are interesting for flowers because they have bilateral symmetry. So it looks like there's a mirror going down the middle, which is very common for animals, but not for flowers, I'm told.
Flowers have more of a rotational symmetry going on?
That is my understanding. Also, the Greeks were looking at the pseudobulbs at the base of the plant, which are where nutrients are stored.
Yes.
And those look a bit
Yes.
like testicles.
I totally see what they're going for with that. Yes.
Except in some orchids, they can grow several meters large.
Dare to dream. Am I right, Greeks?
Greeks famously liked things a bit smaller than that.
I
but
suppose.
yes.
Well, they liked some parts a bit smaller and other parts a bit larger, is all I'm saying.
Charlotte, when you were growing up, did you subscribe to Tiger Bot magazine?
Well, as I am not a bot, I totally didn't, but I would give anything, almost anything, to have that issue of Tiger Bot with data. I totally want to know, like, what are his turn-ons and what are his turn-offs and what's his perfect date and, like, what kind of girls does he like?
I think his turn-ons and turn-offs are a little switch in the back of his head.
Stop, Chris. You're taking the mystery out of all of it.
Oh, you're one of those people who don't want to read the user manual.
Well, I know that you are a person who reads the user manual. Keeps you up at night. Woo!
Indeed. All right. Well, okay. If you didn't read Tiger Bot, did you read the other Tiger? What is it? Tiger
It's
Gal? What is it called?
It's called Tiger Beat.
Tiger Beat. Wait, I thought it was
Yeah.
Teen Beat. What? There was a few of these magazines.
Yes, there's absolutely. There's more than one. Well, in a time when people consumed magazines and when we did not have the internet in order to learn about our favorite stars, we needed more than one magazine to learn about our teen idols. So yeah, Tiger Beat was one of them and Teen Beat was another one. And there were various others, of course. And of course, there were special issues that they would put out just on your one favorite teen celebrity.
Oh.
But, stuff like that. I mean, who didn't have an issue of the David Cassidy Teen Beat?
David
Tiger
Cassidy?
Beat? Sure. Well, these things have been around for
Yeah,
I
but
don't
did
even
you
know.
have the David Cassidy
I
one?
wouldn't have. My mother might have. No, it wouldn't have even
No?
been my mom. My mom would have had the one on the Beatles or something like that.
Yeah.
But, my cousins who were, 11, 12 inside of the 70s might have had
Sure.
the David Cassidy in the same way that I had the New Kids on the Block one. And the same way that younger cousins of mine might have had the NSYNC one or something
Right.
like that.
But I'm curious about the ones that you had. First off, did you subscribe to any of these magazines?
No, we never. So we never had a subscription to Teen Beat or Tiger Beat, either of them. We would have gone to the store and purchased them, which means that my parents were purchasing them for us, which seems outrageous to me. Because, I did not grow up wealthy or anything like that. And these magazines are $3-4 or something like that. And it's hard to imagine that my mom would have gone out monthly and gotten a Tiger Beat for us to look at celebrity, because the information inside of it is crap. I mean, have you ever read one of these?
No, but I feel like I have a basic idea that it's mostly pictures.
It's a lot of pictures because, of course, at the time, again, no internet. If you wanted a picture of Jonathan Knight from the New Kids on the Block, who was my favorite, you would have to go into one of these magazines and to get a picture of them.
Which the hell one was Jonathan Knight? That's not one of the ones that it's anyone's favorite.
He was my favorite, Chris. You stop it.
Jordan, Joey, and Donnie I get, but Jonathan?
Jonathan was my favorite. Jonathan was my favorite of the New Kids on the Block. Yes. I know.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, less competition, but also, he's the one who sang White Christmas on their Christmas album.
Okay.
Older brother of Jordan.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
That was the vibe I was totally going for.
You wanted the mature one. Was he the mature one of the group? I can't remember.
Sure. I mean, he's the one who didn't light his hotel room on fire.
Well, that is a thing you should look for in a pop star.
Looking at you, Donnie Wahlberg.
I knew he wasn't the bad boy.
No, he certainly. But, occasionally he would have his picture taken in a leather jacket, which is as close to bad boy as I really needed anybody to go. So it was fine.
Amazing.
But yeah, Jonathan Knight was my favorite of the New Kids on the Block. And it's not like you could just Google image search for Jonathan Knight. Back then, you had to go get a magazine that had pictures of it. And Tiger Beat was all about the I'm going to say the word centerfold, but I don't mean it that way. They were all about the magazine 2-page spread that was just a poster you could take out of the staples and put up on your wall. And now you had a poster of your teenage crush.
And would you cut up these magazines and make collages of your favorite New Kid on Block?
But that's the thing. You don't have to cut them up. They've already cut up all of the photos and made photo collages on the pages. So you don't have to cut them up. You could just take them out and put them on your wall. Or you could get a magazine that had a picture of a happy couple, and you could cut out the face of your favorite celebrity and put it on the groom.
Right.
For me, anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then cut out a picture of my face and put it on, the bride or the female in the happy couple and be like, look, we're dating.
And then you could cut out the little orchid corsage and put it on.
Exactly. And then I could cut out the Bela Lugosi stealing my corpse. And it's like I have a shadow box version of this movie. No, I mean... Yeah, Tiger Beat was a very interesting way to live out the fantasy of, oh my gosh, if I met this celebrity, I could date a New Kid on the Block because I have all this information about what they like and don't like, and I can just become that person for them. So that if we ever met, I would know exactly what to say in order to capture their attention. And I know just what their turn-ons and turn-offs are. And I know just what kind of girls they like to date. Which, in the case of Jonathan Knight didn't really work out for me because he has since come out and I am not the object of his desire. Turns out, who knew?
Hey everybody, it's time for the Shallow 13.
It's time for the Shallow 13. 13 questionable Bela Lugosi impressions explaining today's experiment, The Corpse Vanishes. Go, Charlotte, go!
The Corpse Vanishes was directed by Wallace Fox, who directed dozens and dozens of movies, most of them westerns. Let's see, one of the movies he directed was called The Gay Amigo.
Don't get too excited, though. The Gay Amigo was about the Cisco Kid and his sidekick Pancho, two Mexican caballeros who do not give in to their titular gay longings. Though, for all you Cisco Pancho shippers, there is a scene in this movie where they head off to take a bath together. I mean, it's just a ruse. They don't actually do it, but I look forward to your fanfic.
Instead, they fight crime. Turns out some Americans are pretending to be Mexican bandits stealing from other Americans. Also, they're trying to prevent Arizona from becoming a state, presumably because then the feds would sniff out their scam. The movie doesn't really explain, but wow, Americans pretending there's a massive crime wave at the southern border for political purposes? Who'd have thunk?
Anyway, our young, tough-as-nails reporter is played by Luana Walters, who has a tiny role in Season 8's The She-Creature. She also starred in a lost exploitation film from 1934 called The Third Sex, based, somewhat, on Radcliffe Hall's novel The Well of Loneliness. So The Third Sex presumably had a bit more gay in it than The Gay Amigo.
Angelo Rosito, who plays the shorter of the two lackeys, had a career in films that stretched from Todd Browning's Freaks in 1932 to playing the Master in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome in 1985. His list of credits is amazing, from playing a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz to an uncredited role in Hell's a Poppin', Hello Beth.
2 appearances in Dr. Dolittle, H.R. Pufnstuf, the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings, Can't Stop the Music, and an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And that's him on the covers of Tom Waits' album Swordfish Trombones and on Bob Dylan's The Basement Tapes. I don't know, I just feel like he should be a bit more famous.
The lackey's mom is played by Minerva Uricol, who was in roughly a zillion movies and TV shows, but somehow not in Bonanza. She did have a small role in the 7 Faces of Dr. Lau, which you'll recall is Joel's favorite movie. Somehow he didn't recognize her.
Okay, let's talk about one of the riffs. Our young, tough-as-nails reporter finds out where Dr. Lorenz lives.
He lives up at Brookdale now.
Oh, how convenient.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're quite welcome.
He lives at a mall?
Brookdale Center was a shopping mall in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Unfortunately, it has since closed down due to a tragic boy band incident.
Whoa. In 2005, the boy band B5 was playing a free concert at the Brookdale Center, sponsored by Radio Disney. And the thousands of tween girls in attendance absolutely rushed the stage. Quote, "It just seemed like a girl frenzy," said one Radio Disney representative.
And a few years later, the mall was closed down. Okay, the B5 riot probably wasn't really the inciting incident. The mall had already lost most of its anchor stores, and the 2008 recession was around the corner, but come on, it's a much better story if we pretend like it is.
By the way, Brookdale, California is a little town near Santa Cruz that sits in the San Lorenzo Valley. San Lorenzo? Dr. Lorenz? Coincidence? Maybe. But again, where's the fun in that?
And that's time. Okay, we have to do a little segment that relates to the short somehow.
Okay.
I have nothing to say about the short.
No, Commando Cody is boring.
Oh, we've talked about everything already, I feel like. Okay, there was one riff that got me a little excited, though.
Okay.
There's a scene of some, I think it's landscape of the moon, allegedly, of course, somewhere outside of Los Angeles, I'm sure. But they refer to it in a riff as...
It's a Wham-O magic window.
Okay, I totally remember this riff, but I have no idea what a Wham-O magic window is. Did you have one?
I didn't have one, but I think my grandmother did, and I played with it a bunch when I was visiting her.
Your grandma had a Wham-O magic window?
Well, she had a bunch of toys for when the grandkids came by, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, very reasonable. I don't think she ever played with it or anything. Who knows? But, you know, it was there in the chest for when I would come over, so that was cool. Before we get to that, you of course know Wham-O, right?
Yeah, Wham-O's like up there with Nerf in terms of creating awesome toys to play with.
Yeah, like blowguns and throwing knives.
Exactly. Obviously, just like Nerf.
Yeah, so that's what they started out. They started out by selling projectiles like that were quite real and quite dangerous. But Wham-O was run by 2 friends who had grown up together, and they just really also liked making very silly things.
Okay.
And they were super into like people coming up to them and saying, here's a silly thing that might make some money. And then going like, yes, we will do that. So like they started selling hula hoops in 1957.
You know, for kids.
Exactly. They made the Frisbee, or, you know, they bought it from the inventor, but they sold the Frisbee and made it super popular.
Sure. Also featured in the Hudsucker Proxy.
It's almost like they were telling the Wham-O story in that movie.
What?
They came out with Slip and Slide in 1961.
Stop it. I loved the Slip and Slide.
Yeah, it killed a few people, like some of their other products did as well.
Yeah, at least it wasn't throwing knives.
Indeed. And also it was adults. Adults weren't supposed to use it, just little kids, I guess. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. They also came up with the Super Ball, those little incredibly bouncy balls in the mid-60s.
Oh, yeah. Those things are really unpredictable and awesome to play with.
Exactly. And this is something I just found out. The Super Bowl got its name from the Super Ball.
Stop it. I don't believe you.
I didn't really believe it either, but it seems like people who were in the room at the time told this story about how that was the inspiration, that they didn't even really like the name Super Bowl. Super sounded a bit trite, and they wanted to call it something like Ultimate Bowl or something like that. But like it stuck, and it seems to have worked. So what are you going to do?
50-ish years later.
They also came out with Silly String in 1969.
Nice, flammable, as evidenced by, the Babysitter Killer Queen.
There you go. But they also came up with a bunch of really weird products that are not as well remembered and are very strange.
Like the magic window?
Like a rake that you use to get the eggshells out of your egg in the morning. I don't know. But also like the magic window, which is a very strange toy. It's barely a toy. It is two pieces of, I guess, plexiglass, or maybe it was real glass. I don't know. That made a little oval that you could easily hold between your two hands.
Okay.
Like the size of a medium-sized mirror, I guess. It was like a foot long.
Were they like attached to each other?
Yeah, because they were holding little bits of what was called micronium, which we might consider colored glass, inside of it. And so there's this thin layer of colored glass, and most of the ones that I saw were blue and white, but I guess they also made pink and white ones, for girls, I guess.
Sure, yes. We can't have our genders mixed. That's just wrong.
And all you would do was tilt this little oval back and forth, and it would create sand art, basically.
Oh, okay.
Like these very evocative landscape or oceanscape style images, just out of the random falling of the different strata of coloration of the micronium.
But it was like, when you're describing that, like something that when you tilt it, everything moves a little bit. It feels like it should be liquid, but you're saying it wasn't liquid in between the two glasses.
I mean, it's effectively sand or little pieces of glass. So it does have, like, I think you could use your fluid dynamics equations on this.
I mean, not my fluid dynamics equations.
No, yours, the ones that you developed.
Well, as expert in fluid dynamics, TM.
I've shared an image with you of what it might look like.
Oh, it looks like a Hokusai wood print of the ocean.
Oh, yeah. It kind of does. Except it's made of sand, and you can move it back and forth and cause it to reconfigure. And so you'd turn it, and it would behave a bit unpredictably, and you wouldn't really know exactly what you were going to get. But, like, it was neat, the same way watching a fire is neat.
Yes, but much less destructive.
Yeah, but, like, campfires aren't that destructive if you pay attention to them properly, I guess.
Smokey would have you make sure that you put yours out. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, similarly, you don't want to smash the glass onto someone's head. Smokey would also have, or Glassy would also have said something about that.
It's very true.
But it is sort of barely a toy.
I mean, I'm looking at this Wham-O magic window. The picture that you sent me has mostly blues and whites, and it has lots of ocean kind of feel to it. What would the pink one have evoked, though?
Georgia O'Keeffe paintings.
Well, that makes sense with our wow.
Yeah, there's a pink one for you.
Wow. Yes, very reminiscent of the Georgia O'Keeffe. Perhaps inspiring her own art.
I feel like the blue ones were more popular, not just because boyishness or whatever, but also because they do look a bit more like things than the pink ones do, as you rightly say.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it can be a flower, but it's not even evoking fire for me, It does have some pinks and some peach yellow type stuff inside of there.
Yeah, there are some, like, stones that have that kind of pink and white coloration to them.
You're right, yes.
But the blue is much more evocative.
Did your grandma have a blue one for you to play with then?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know that there were pink ones until I was reading up on it for this. And also there were glow-in-the-dark ones eventually.
Oh.
So that sounds cool.
You know what else it reminds me of? There is a silly putty manufacturer like Aaron who makes like these crazy color silly putties that have those kind of threads of different colors that you can pull the silly putty apart and push it together and all those sorts of things. So it reminds me of that. But, like the Aaron silly putty is going to be way more tactile. And so it feels more like a toy, the crazy Aaron's, it's thinking putty. I'm sorry, I just looked it up. My kid loved thinking putty because it was like the ultimate fidget. He could just keep moving it and it didn't make noise and it didn't call attention to himself, but it still had those colorful streams that could become landscapes for you.
I mean, that does sound pretty cool. I haven't had a chance to play with that. I also think it would be very distracting to bring out your, dinner plate sized magic window in class to fidget with while something was going on or whatever.
I mean, it certainly distracted the radar men from actually being able to catch Commando Cody as he was trying to leave the moon. We've done a really good job of avoiding actually talking about this episode so far, Chris, but we do still need to give our listeners a final factoid. And I've got one.
Oh, great. That saves me a lot of trouble. What
Whew.
is your final factoid for us, Charlotte?
It's a super quick thing. I just wanted to mention that I love that the bots and everybody are playing tag. I think you told me, like, this showed up in one of the KTMA episodes or something, and I was like, oh, they're just running around the Satellite of Love, and you were like, you just wait, it's going to come up again as a segment.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I had forgotten this. They do it in Humanoid Woman.
There you go. And so here they are playing tag again. On the Satellite of Love, a little bit different. I mean, because you do have GPC as a part of it. I didn't know that GPC was it until she tagged somebody. And then, of course, you don't know it's Joel until he tags somebody else. But I especially enjoyed, that's not what my final factoid is about.
Mm-hmm.
When they go back into the theater, Tom suggests that next time they should play a different variation of tag.
It's a very
Next
rare
time we play
species.
TV
Do you
tag.
know of anyone?
Did you play TV tag when you were a kid?
I absolutely played TV tag when I was a kid. When I was forced outside by my cruel, cruel parents and had to play with the other neighborhood
You're so
kids.
mean.
Ugh.
I have a really hard time imagining you playing tag. Like,
Yeah, fair enough.
tag has a lot of running involved. You have one person who's it, and if you end up being it, like, you have to run after everybody else. You have to be faster than everybody else.
But if you have an encyclopedic knowledge of TV shows that you can draw upon, they can't touch you. You are untouchable.
Seriously, you had, like, they found the perfect game for you where you would never be it. You would never be tagged.
I assume you also played TV tag growing up.
I did. And for listeners who may not have played TV Tag, this was pretty much a standard edition tag game, except when you got tagged, you could get immunity from that tag and not be it if you could name a TV show. But you had to name a TV show that nobody else had named before.
Yeah. Now, here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
You have a kid.
Sure, yeah.
Did your kid play TV tag?
My kid has not played TV Tag.
Yeah, because your kid don't watch TV.
No, and not because he doesn't have screens. Oh no, kids don't really watch TV these days.
What the heck how would you play that game as TV tag now? Because, like, what's the difference between a TV show and a YouTube thing and a other thing and it's just not, it doesn't make any sense. Nobody's watching TV.
It's true. So there was when I was looking up TV tag online, there was somebody who was listing what they could do if they were playing with younger kids who didn't know a lot of TV shows. And they suggested adding YouTube content providers, right?
Yeah.
YouTube streamers as something that you could reference. So you could get tagged and then say, Ethan Gamer TV.
Sure, it would be Mr. Beast, but that's it.
Sure.
As far as I can tell, kids have only heard of Mr. Beast.
Veritasium. Mark Rober.
Oh, I mean, you'd hope, but
Yeah, no, it seems like a YouTube channel tag is something that the older adults are so not going to be able to get in on. Also, we don't run, so we're getting tagged a lot.
I mean, that's true. I watched enough YouTube that I probably could, but none of the kids who were playing would recognize any of the shows that I watch, I suppose, or at least not most of them. Anyway, when I was a kid, we eventually would switch it up by not doing TV shows, but doing, superhero characters
Sure.
or
Mhm.
I don't know, animals or whatever else you could list.
It's true.
It was pretty easy to come up with other things that you could list off, and it was a lot of fun to list things. That was the most fun part of TV tag
For you.
for me and all right-thinking people everywhere.
Oh, please. My favorite variation on tag when I was young was freeze tag because you had the ability to unfreeze people who were frozen. And you could tell, like, who needed to be unfrozen, right? Whereas when you're playing tag, you don't always know who's it because it can change hands. But with freeze tag, you could kind of weave in between people who had been frozen and unfreeze them. And you could see who was yelling freeze, and you would know who was it.
Or you could pretend to be frozen, and then when somebody came to unfreeze you, you could tag them because you were it all the time.
Ooh,
Love
you're
that
so
move.
Devious, Chris. Devious. Still my favorite variation on tag. If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if you've ever been it, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our email is info@itsjustashow.com, and we'd love to hear from you. This show is made possible by listeners like you, and like our randomly selected supporter, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. For as little as $1 an episode, you too can be like Catherine and help us research and record this show. You can join us in a friendly Discord, and you can listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. If you want to follow up on anything that was mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/157. Well, Chris, we've dipped our toes back in season 1, and I'm hoping we get to leave season 1 for a little bit. Are we? What's next on our episode doc?
Next up, we will be indeed leaving season 1 to take a little pit stop into season 4.
Yes.
Episode 5, Being from Another Planet.
Oh, what is it like being from another planet?
It's got Sherry Belafonte Harper.
That sounds exciting. Is it exciting, Chris?
I like this episode. I remember
Okay.
enjoying it. I
right.
thought for sure we'd done it already, but I guess we haven't.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to being from another planet.
Wonderful. But until then...
That's a common movie device called foreshortening. They use it instead of butter.
Oh man, they're taking the deli tray away? I think that's so scary. Take it away, Theme Squad.
Oh, God.